We continue now at the top of Daf Ayin Aleph Amid Beis Meseches Avodah Zara. This is Avodah Zarah Daf 71b. On the previous Amar, Rav Ashi said that Meshicha by an Ovid Kochavim is not Kona. That means when the person physically pulls the object, it is not a kinyan when we're dealing with an Ovid Kochavim, when we're dealing with an idolater. And Rav Ashi said, I'll prove it to you from what Rav said, because Rav would tell the shopkeepers who sold wine, he would say to them that you should take the money first from the Ovid Kochavim and then give the wine, because if you take the money afterwards, what's going to happen is it's going to become Yayin Nesech from the moment you measure it out for the Ovid Kochavim, and then you're going to be taking wine, you're going to be taking money for Yayin Nesech. It's going to be Yayin Nesech in your possession, meaning in the shopkeeper, the Jew's possession, and when he takes the money from the Ovid Kochavim, at that point in time, it's already going to be taking money again for Yayin Nesech, which is problematic. And Rav Ashi says, you see from what Rav said, that Meshicha of the Ovid Kochavim is not Kona. Why? Because if you thought that Meshicha by Ovid Kochavim is Kona, so then it would not be a problem. You wouldn't need to take the money first, because Midamoshcha Ovid Kochavim Kanya, from the moment the Ovid Kochavim does Meshicha, he acquires the wine, and Yei Nesech Lohava Adenagabe, it's not Yayin Nesech until he actually touches it, and so therefore it should not have been a problem. The fact that it is a problem indicates that Meshicha is not Kona. Rashi explains, Midamoshcha Ovid Kochavim B'mida, when he pulls it, he's measuring the amount of wine that he's going to take, so Kanya, that would be a kinyan. V'yafagav delo yoav zuzeh, even though no money was given yet. V'haveluhu zuzeh halvagav, at that moment, the money would be like a loan that he owes the money to the shopkeeper. Mekami didn't have a yain nesech before it ever becomes yain nesech. To halo have a nesech ad shenagabe, because it's not yain nesech till he touches it. V'yafilu ilo shakli zuzeh minayu shaper dami. So even if they wouldn't take the money first, even if the shopkeeper wouldn't take the money first, it should be fine. And so that proves that Meshicha by an Ovid Kochavim is not Kona. And the Gemara says, if the case over here was that he was measuring it out into the vessel of the Jew, then your point would be good, because then you could be proving that Meshicha by the Ovid Kochavim is not Kona. But lo tzricha, but no, it's necessary over here to kachayil v'rami l'moned Ovid Kochavim, because he's actually measuring it out into the vessel of the Ovid Kochavim. And the understanding over here is that when it's going into the vessel of the Ovid Kochavim, it becomes Yayin Nesech right away, and it actually would be a problem that it is now Yayin Nesech of the Yisrael, and he's going to be taking money from the Ovid Kochavim for selling the Yayin Nesech, his own Yayin Nesech, to the Ovid Kochavim. But the Gemara still says, even if it's being poured into the vessel of the Ovid Kochavim, sof, but still at the end, Kimota la'avira demona kanya, when it reaches the airspace of the vessel, that's when the Ovid Kochavim will make a kinyan. And Yayin Nesech lo have ademoti la'arise demona, but it really won't become Yayin Nesech immediately. It's only Yayin Nesech when it reaches the actual bottom of the vessel. And the Gemara says, Shmami no, do we see from here that Nitzok Chibor, maybe you have to say that the stream creates a connection. And so therefore, once you're pouring it in, now that stream is all interconnected and it all becomes Yayin Nesech really immediately, and that's why it's a problem. But that is a question, whether Nitzok Chibor, whether Nitzok is considered a Chibor or not. And the Gemara says, Lo, no, you don't have to see from here that Nitzok is a Chibor, because Eden Nakad le'Ovid Kochavim l'chli biyade, had the Ovid Kochavim been holding the vessel in his hand, Hachanami, then indeed what you're saying would be correct, because the moment it enters the airspace of the vessel, it would be a kinyan of the Ovid Kochavim. That would be a kinyan through Hagbah. But lo no tzrich, it's necessary demona cha'ara. The case over here is that the vessel is actually on the ground, and since the vessel is on the ground, so you don't have a kinyan Hagbah, you don't have a situation where the Ovid Kochavim is acquiring it before it becomes Yayin Nesech. And again, that's why Rav said it's a problem if you don't take the money first. You're essentially taking money for your Yayin Nesech. But the Gemara still asks, V'tikni le'kelev, but why doesn't the vessel create the acquisition? It is the vessel of the Ovid Kochavim, and that should be the kinyan. And the Gemara says, Shamat mina, should we see from this that kelev shalokeach b'reshus mocher lo kana lokeach, that the vessels of the buyer, when you're in the possession, you're in the store of the seller, the buyer does not acquire. That seems to be what we're saying over here, because again, we're saying it is not an acquisition, and that's why you have a problem of selling your own Yayin Nesech now to the Ovid Kochavim and taking money for that Yayin Nesech, because if it was a kinyan, so then again there would be no issue. The Ovid Kochavim would be Kona right away, and it would be the Yayin Nesech of the Ovid Kochavim. It would not be the Yayin Nesech of the Yisrael. It would become Yayin Nesech in the hands of the Ovid Kochavim after he made the acquisition, and it should not have been a problem. And the Gemara says, Lo no, liolamei malach, really I'll say to you, Kana Lokeach, that in general, the vessel of the Lokeach, even in the Rishus of the mocher would create a kinyan. And so then we're back to the question, if that is the case, there should be no problem. You shouldn't need to take the money first because the Oved Kochavim will acquire it right away. But v'hacha b'may askinan, here what are we dealing with? Kagon di'ika ikvas yayin apume de kuznasa. There's a little bit remnants of wine on the rim of the vessel. Dekama kama insichle, as you're pouring the wine in, the moment it just touches those drops of wine that are on the rim of the vessel, and those drops of wine are considered to be yayin nesach. That creates yayin nesach as it is entering, and so really it will become yayin nesach before the Oved Kochavim makes a kinyan, and that's why Rav said you have to take the money first. And Rashi explains, B'mana d'Oved Kochavim, the case where Rav was warning the shopkeepers to take the money first, that was talking where it's being poured into the vessel of the Oved Kochavim. The yayin shebeklios, or now the wine that's in the vessel creates the prohibition on the wine. V'have yayin nesach mekami meshicha, and the point is it becomes yayin nesach before the meshicha, that's why it's a problem, that's why the money needs to be taken first. And then the Gemara still said, Midamati la'avira demana, but even if it is the vessel of the Oved Kochavim, the moment it reaches the airspace of that vessel, the Oved Kochavim, of that vessel of the Oved Kochavim, Kanya Oved Kochavim b'Hagbah. The Oved Kochavim acquires it with Hagbah, so again, it should not really be a problem because the Oved Kochavim is going to acquire it before it becomes Yayin Nesach. And then ultimately the Gemara went on to say that the reason why it's a problem is because Ikvas Yayin, Rashi explains, Ognim Yesh, Bekelev Shel Oved Kochavim, there are these rims on the vessels of the Oved Kochavim, Shemesakev HaYayin Al Piv Ketipo Kishnei Tipin, there's a few drops of wine there on the rim, Mekame Denimte Chamra the Yisrael ba'avira demona the Oved Kochavim, and before the wine of the Jew enters the airspace of the vessel, it's already touching these drops of wine. Umitzar ba'hitipas yayin shal piv. It's becoming usher through these drops of wine that are on the mouth, that are on the lid of the vessel, and that's why there's a problem. That's why Rav said it's important to take the money first. But the Gemara continues and asks, Uchaman, but who does that follow? Delok Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. That does not seem to be like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. And Rashi explains, Keman, Hodam Arav, that which Rav is saying, Lemishkal Demei Beresha, that you have to take the money first, Mekami Denitzar B'Yikva, before it becomes Asr as Yayin Nesach, when it touches those drops that are on the rim. That does not seem to be like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Rashi explains, Delok Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, it's not like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Tekatani Mas Nisan Yayin Nesach Shenafa Labor Kulo Asr. It says in the Mishnah that when you have yayin nesach that falls into the pit, it all becomes aser. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel Omer yimochru kulo liovdei kochavim chutz midmei yayin nesach shavo. You can sell it all to ovdei kochavim and just exclude the value of that little amount of yayin nesach. Alma mishum taroves yayin nesach lo mitzer bahanoch chamra de Yisrael. You see that according to Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, just because there's a little bit of yayin nesach mixed in, that does not make the wine of a Jew. It doesn't make it forbidden bahanoch, forbidden in benefit. Vanon kimlan, and we hold kol Makom Shashon Rav Shimon ben Gamliel b'Mishnah Zeinu halacha kamoso. Anytime Rav Shimon ben Gamliel is in the Mishnah, the halacha is like him. So how can we say that Rav over here is not following Rav Shimon ben Gamliel? Again, if Rav is saying that you have to take the money first, otherwise there's this problem because of these little drops of wine, that would not seem to be following the halacha, because we paskin like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. To Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, because if it's Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, ha'amar yimocher kula lovdei kochavim chutz midmei yayin nesach shabo. Again, like Rashi just said, he says you can sell it all to ovdei kochavim and just exclude the value of the yayin nesach within it. But the Gemara says that's not a problem, because midi hu taima ela l'Rav. This entire discussion is all according to Rav. Rav is the one that's giving this advice to the shopkeepers. Ha'amar Rav, but Rav said halacha Rav Shimon ben Gamliel chavis b'chavis. The halacha is like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, only by barrels within barrels. Avalo yayin b'yayin, but it's not like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel when it comes to wine and wine. And Rashi explains, Midu time Ela L'Rav, Hachkushya Laman Ramayas Le. Who are you asking this question to? Ela L'Rav, you're asking it on Rav. The Amr L'Savayasa, he's the one that said to the shopkeepers, Lemishkal Demei Beresha, to take the money first. L'Didei Lo Sirmi, but it's not a question to him. Do you Amr Behed Yadein Halacha Rav Shimon ben Gamliel? Ela B'chavis, because he himself said that the halacha is only like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel by barrels. Shenesarev B'chevias, you have one barrel. Shenesarev B'chevias Acheres, that's mixed with other barrels. The Shakal Chad Minayu, V'shadi Lenor, you take one of them, you throw it in the river. V'inach Sharu B'han. That's when he said the halacha is like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, the rest are permitted b'hana. Avolo yayin b'yayin, he would not say that by wine and wine. The chinesarev yayin nesach b'yayin kosher, if the yayin nesach gets mixed with the wine that's kosher, kulo aser, it is all going to be forbidden. And the Gemara continues, Meisvei, we have a question from the following brisa. This is a question on the idea that Meshicha by an Oved Kochavim is Kona. The Brisa says, Halokeach grutos min ovdei kochavim. If somebody buys broken vessels from ovdei kochavim, these are broken vessels of silver or gold, umotza behen avodas kochavim, and then he finds among them that there's some actual Avoda Zara, and so he wants to go back on the sale. So iman shalom nasan mos mashach, if he did meshicha, but he hasn't yet given the money, so yachzir, so then he's able to return it. But imam misha nasan mos mashach, but if he gave over the money and he did the meshicha, so then he's not able to return it. Yolech liyam hamelech, he has to throw it into the Dead Sea. And so the Gemara says, "Isalka daitach meshicha b'ovid kochavim kona." If it enters your mind that meshicha by an ovid kochavim is a good kinyan, so amay achzer. So why in that first case of the brisa is he able to return it? Presumably, what the brisa is saying is that if he only did meshicha and he gave no money, that was not a kinyan. That's why he's able to return it. But if he already gave the money, so then that's a kinyan. Then he's not able to return it. And the Gemara continues and answers. Amar Abaya, Abaya says, "Mishum demirzi ki mekachtos," because this appears to be a mekachtos, meaning to say, it really could be that Meshicha is Kona. But here when he did the Meshicha, he did it with the understanding that this was not Avoda Zara. It turned out to be Avoda Zara, so that's a Mekachtos. That's why he's able to return it. But the Gemara says, Amar Rava, Rava says, Reisha Mekachtos, the first case of the Brisa, that's a Mekachtos. Seif Alav Mekachtos, when he gives money, that's not a Mekachtos. What difference does it make? Whether he gave the money, he didn't give the money, it's always a Mekachtos. He should always be able to go back on the deal. And so the Gemara continues, Elo Amar Rava, rather Rava says, Reisha v'Seifa Mekachtos, really both the first case and the end case of the Brisa, it is a Mekachtos, it is a mistaken purchase. V'Reisha de lo yoiv zuze, but in the first case where no money was given, lo mischazi kavodas kochavim biyad Yisrael, it doesn't appear to be that it's Avoda Zara in the possession of the Jew, and that's why there's no problem giving it right back. But Seifa, but in the end case of the Brisa, the yoiv zuze, where the Jew already gave money for that, so mischazi kavodas kochavim biyad Yisrael, it looks like it's Avoda Zara already in the hands of the Jew, and therefore for the Jew now to give it back to the Ovid Kochavim, that would be problematic. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Mar Kashisha Bereder Rav Chisda Rav Ashi. Mar Kashisha, the son of Rav Chisda, said to Rav Ashi, Tashma, come and hear a proof from our Mishnah in terms of this issue of whether Meshicha is Kona or not. It says in our Mishnah, Hamocher Yeno li Ovid Kochavim, one who sells his wine to an Ovid Kochavim, Pasak Ad Shalom, that if he fixes the price before the Meshicha, before the measuring, so then Dam of Mutarim, then it's mutter, it's permitted to take the money from the Ovid Kochavim. And presumably the idea over here is that when he actually measures it out, when he does that Meshicha, the Ovid Kochavim will be Kona, and that takes place, that kinyan takes place before it becomes Yayin Nesach, and that's why the money is mutter. But V'yamrit Meshicha by Ovid Kochavim ain't a Kona, if you're going to say the Meshicha by an Ovid Kochavim is not a kinyan, Amai Dam of Mutarim, why should the money be permitted? And therefore it certainly seems from the Mishnah that Meshicha creates that kinyan. And the Gemara continues and answers, and here what are we talking about? The actim lay dinar, that actually what happened is, he sold the wine to the Ovid Kochavim, but the Ovid Kochavim did give him 1 dinar as the beginning, so to speak, of the payment, and that's actually what created the kinyan, and again, the kinyan happens before it actually becomes Yayin Nesach, that's why it's not a problem. But the Gemara continues and asks, if so, let's look at the end case of the Mishnah. Madad ad shelo pasak, let's say he measures it out before they fix a price, Dam of Asurin. So then in that situation, the money is going to be prohibited. Now the question is, v'idekadim le dinar, if this case is talking about a situation where a dinar is given at first, and that creates a kinyan, so then it should be mutter in both cases. Amai dam of Asurin. Why should it be that the money should be prohibited? But the Gemara continues, Amar le, he said back to him, Uledi dachti amrit, Meshicha be'ovad kochavim kona, but according to you, that Meshicha creates a kinyan, so you have the same problem. Amai reisha dam of mutar, and why is it that in the first case, the money is mutar, v'seifa dam of asur, and in the end case, the money is asur? In either situation, there's going to be a kinyan. Either the kinyan is going to be Meshicha, or the kinyan is going to be that dinar that was given, and in either case, the kinyan takes place before it becomes Yayin Nesach, so why are we making distinctions between the first case of the Mishnah and the second case of the Mishnah? What do you have to say? What really is the difference between the first case of the Mishnah? Again, in the first case of the Mishnah, they fix the price before it's measured out, and then in the end case of the Mishnah, they fix the price. They measure it out before they actually fix the price. So what is the difference between the two? Pasak, because when they fix the price, Sam Chadaita, his mind is at ease, and the kinyan is able to take effect when he can rely on the fact that this transaction is actually going to go through. But lo lo pasak, but if they didn't even fix a price, lo samcha daite, so he's not really relying on anything. And so therefore, just like you're going to say that, lididinami, so for me as well, afagav dekadim leidinor, even though the way that I interpret the Mishnah is that a dinar was given, you interpret the Mishnah that the kinyan is through the Mashiach. But you make a distinction when it's samcha daite, and when it's not samcha daite, the kinyan is going to take effect when his mind is at ease. So the same thing over here, according to me also, afagav dekadim leidinor, even though he gave him a dinar, and that creates a kinyan, but pasak, but if he fixed the price, samcha daite, then he can rely on that. Lo pasak, if he did not fix the price, lo samcha daite, that he cannot rely on, and that's the difference between the Reisha and the Seifa. And Rashi explains, lo pasak, if he doesn't fix the price, kodem meshicha, before the meshicha, lo samcha daite lemikni b'meshicha, he's not relying on the idea of acquiring it through the meshicha, shema yarba lo bedama, because maybe he's going to increase the price, and that's why meshicha is not going to be effective by lo pasak. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Ravina le Ravashi, Ravina said to Ravashi, Toshma, come and hear the following proof. The Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Chia bar Abba said that Rabbi Yochanan said, Ben Noach nereg al pachos mishava pruta, Ben Noach is killed, even if he steals something worth less than a pruta. Velonitan leheshavan, and also this is something that he's not obligated to return. And the Gemara says, V'yamrit meshicha b'ovet kochavim eina kona. Now, if you're saying that meshicha by an ovet kochavim is not a kinyan, so technically when he steals it, he doesn't even really make a kinyan. It's not really theft. So amai nereg. So why should he get killed for that? And the Gemara answers, Misham detzari liYisrael. The reason is because he caused the pain to a Jew by taking away this object. And Rashi explains, Ben Noach shegozal es Yisrael pachos mishava pruta. If a Ben Noach steals from a Jew something worth less than a pruta, afagav degabi Yisrael lav memonahu. Even though, as regards to the Jew, it's not even considered money. If it's not worth a pruta, it's like nothing. The machli oleh, it's something that's just forgiven. Gabe ovid kochavim memonahu. The point over here is that relative to the ovid kochavim, it is considered to be money. Uven Noach nitztav ala gezel, and a Ben Noach is commanded not to steal. Besanhedrin, that's in Sanhedrin. V'azhora shalahen zuhi misasan, and the warning for them is also the warning that they're going to get the death penalty. V'ein tzrichin hasra, meaning to say you don't need an additional warning. They are subject to the death penalty. And so the point over here is, again, apparently when the Ben Noach is stealing this item less than a shava pruta, even though that's not considered something of monetary value relative to the Jew, it is considered monetary value relative to the Ben Noach. Therefore, the Ben Noach is subject to the death penalty. But again, it's lo nitan lehishavon. But the point over here is, doesn't it seem that Meshicha by an ovet kochavim is kona? That's why it's considered to be stealing. Otherwise, why is he getting killed? And the Gemara answered, no, it could be it's not a kinyan, but it's because ditzarei liYisrael, he caused pain for the Jew. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ayin Beis Amud Aleph.